This is episode number 242 with Australian artist Colley Whisson.
This is the Plein Air Podcast with Rhoads, publisher and founder of Plein Air Magazine. In the Plein Air Podcast, we cover the world of outdoor painting. Called plein air, the French coined the term, which means open air or outdoors. The French pronounce it plein air. Others say plein air. No matter how you say it, there is a huge movement of artists around the world who are going outdoors to paint. And this show is about that movement. Now, here's your host, author, publisher, and painter, Rhoads.
Thank you, Jim Kipping, and welcome to the Plein Air Podcast. I'm Eric. Thank you for tuning in today. And coming up soon after the interview, I have the Art Marketing Minute, and we're going to talk about pricing your artwork and how to know if a gallery that's reaching out to you is legit. If those things are important to you, hang around after our interview. I want you to raise your hand. Don't raise it yet. I know it can be a little awkward if you're sitting there listening in your studio or your home, or maybe you're sitting with somebody beside you and you've got your earphones in, earplugs in, or you're driving. But raise your hand if you got outside to paint this week. Yep. Okay. I see quite a few of you did. Some of you didn't. I know the weather's kind of rocky in some places. If you've been paying attention, you know that I created a global painting event that happened recently, and painting outside is what we do. And we painted the world famous artist cabin. So that's kind of fun. So I did get a chance to paint, not as much, but I am going to get out a little bit more. The blue bonnets are out, and they are in full bloom. And we are just completely ready to get out there and paint them. It's kind of hard to paint a field of blue because you're not used to it. And if the blue is too garish, of course, then everything looks just really awkward. And you don't want it to look like water, right? But sometimes the colors are the same. So you got to be really careful about that. It's challenging, and that's why I love doing it. Raise your hand also, by the way, if you're already a subscriber to Plein Air Magazine. Put it up high. Oh, I see you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't see very many hands that are not subscribers, but if you're not, go ahead and get yours soon. Just go to pleinairmagazine.com. That way you don't have to go to the newsstand and pay twice the price. You know, in the baseball world, they do spring training. As a matter of fact, it's going on right now in Florida. In the plein air world, we do spring training too. We gather in person in Denver this year, anyway, in May for the 10th annual Plein Air Convention. It's going to be epic because it's our 10th birthday. So we have got some fun things planned. And we even have a world-class celebrity, Jane Seymour, who's also a painter, is going to help us celebrate. And we have some amazing artists who are going to be teaching at the Plein Air Convention. So we would love it if you would join us. And you don't have to be at any particular level. You don't even have to paint when we go out and paint every day. We have teaching all day long and then painting. And it's really kind of a lot of fun. But, you know, a lot of people, not a lot, but a few people don't paint. They just want to kind of attend, and that's cool too. But we have a beginner's day if you're a beginner. Or now we're calling it Essentials Day, I believe. And we also have a pre-convention workshop with the great Lori Putnam. It's going to be fun. That starts a day and a half before the convention. So get it done. pleinairconvention.com. Hey, thanks again for making us number one in the Feed Spot list of painting podcasts for the second year in a row. We like that. That's nice. We are honored. Now, before I get started, I want to let you know, because I get a lot of questions about this. The Publishers Invitational, my retreat in June, is sold out. And it's never sold out this early, but it's sold out. And I think we've been able to open it up and get a couple more rooms maybe. But really, if you want to come to the next one, the Fall Color Week is not yet sold out. It's more than 50% sold out. And that's taking place in the fall. We paint fall color. And this year we're doing it which is rare. We're doing it in the Adirondacks, which is also beautiful, and at a different place. We're staying in what used to be one of the great old great camps, and it's right on the water. It's beautiful, and the rooms are really a lot of fun. So anyway, check it out at fullcolorweek.com. Now, because Plein Air is a worldwide movement, and we're happy to have played a little bit of a role in that, it's spreading throughout the world. We thought it'd be nice to talk to an artist who is in Australia, but is also painting the world, including painting throughout the United States. His name is Colley Whisson, or Whisson. Did I say Wilson? I don't know why I did that. Colley is internationally recognized as an artist. He was born in 1966 and raised in the northern regions of Brisbane under guidance of his dad, the renowned artist Eric Whisson. He commenced an oil painting career at the age of 20. He's been long considered a leading artist of his generation. His first solo exhibition was a sellout at the age of 24. And since then, he's had numerous solo joint exhibitions, written magazine articles, 2 books, and a recent ebook. They're sought after by collectors and libraries nationally and internationally. He's also got some video and mentoring and things like that out there. So terrific. Colley, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a real pleasure, Eric. Thanks,
You're
mate.
kind of a super achiever, aren't you?
Well, as you mentioned, my father, I'm actually one of 7 kids as well. So my parents, I guess, are overachievers, and me being a twin as well. And so they had their hands full. 5 boys, 2 girls, a full-blown art career. My father used to teach 100 students a week. And so that's a lot to live up to.
Well, it is a lot to live up to, but it's also, it could go either direction, right? Because I know that my kids don't want anything to do with it. I dragged them to art museums and things like that over years, and they're like, "Dad, not another museum." So maybe it'll come back to them at some point. But what about you? Were you the only one interested in art?
Actually, it's funny. I sort of came from a real sporting sort of background as well. My father was quite a good sports person, and my mum was quite good at sport as well. And I was a fast runner and played soccer, cricket, loved golf, and I think my parents allowed us to live out our ambitions and dreams with our sport and physical side. And Australia is such a great area country to grow up in. It's very safe, and so we were able to do that classic thing where you go outside, you have friends over, you go to friends' places, and you just make sure you're home before dark. And
well, for us, it was when the street lights come on. That
was the classic. Yeah. I think that was a worldwide sort of one. If the street lights are on, you better be home. So because dinner will be on the table and it's time to eat. And with 9 people in the family, you wanted to make sure you were there early, or you kind of missed out on seconds, or you missed out on something. You don't know if something went missing too. So, but it was kind of, we had a cow and chickens, and we grew up on a couple of acres. Dad actually did a little bit of farming before relaunching his painting career. And so to me, I look back at it as a really lovely, relaxed, lot of fresh air. We had pineapple farms. Queensland's known for our pineapples, bananas, mangoes, you name it. Sunshine. We like Florida. We also have the heat and humidity as well. So that's why with my new studio that we just built 12 months ago, I've made sure I've got fans and air conditioning, and so I've got all the mod cons.
Nice.
Yeah, I normally try and save my plein air painting more for the slightly cooler months. And
was your dad a plein air painter as well? I know he was a very well-known painter. Did he get outside?
Yeah. Queensland isn't as conducive to outside work because we're sort of hot and steamy for sort of 6 to 8 months of the year. But no, he would actually do regular art classes, and we'd regularly go out painting. Actually, we used to go out once a week for about 12 years. Actually, the funny story was a young artist friend and I think I was 21, he was 22, and we went out just together, just us, to paint, and I made a complete mess of it. we were getting eaten alive by marsh flies, these big flies that bite you. They're like 4 times the size of a normal fly. Driving home thinking, well, I don't think I'm going to be a great artist because I can't paint to save my life. And on the drive home, I thought to myself, you know what? All the colour mixing, the brushes, how about I tone that right down and just start drawing? I'll draw and draw until I'm starting to see the subjects and see what needs to be done. And I actually ended up doing that for about 3 years before I then started actually painting oils outside. And in hindsight, I thought that was probably close to one of the best bits of training I could have given myself, because not only was I teaching myself to see, but I was also teaching myself how to recognize a good subject. And I think the one thing that a lot of people probably identify with my work is the light, the sunlight. And I think that's all comes from that monochromatic, black and white values, that because light loves contrast. So that was now I see as a great apprenticeship. Even though I did actually do a little bit of picture framing, my father had a picture framing business as well. So I did that for about 12
support 9 kids or 7 kids.
Yeah, 7 kids.
So,
Yeah, no.
well, I think that's a really great observation, because I was just reading a book on Everett Raymond Kinsler, the great portrait artist, and
Yes.
the one thing that he in the book and when I knew him, he was constantly reinforcing is you've got to get your drawing down. Drawing is everything, and if you don't do your drawing right, nothing else is going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what a great investment in time in getting your drawing, and also being able to see values. That's huge.
Absolutely. Actually, my parents were fantastic. They were so supportive that they said, "Don't worry," because I was actually a carpenter originally after leaving high school. You wonder how I fitted everything in, but once I started painting, actually, my dad would get my oldest brother, second oldest, third oldest, my sister, and I think he was getting down to me, who's number 5, and my twin brother, who's number 6, thinking, boy, I'm running out of kids to pass the family business on to. But they were super supportive. They, in the first couple of years, until I started sort of making an income and a living, they said, don't do any framing, don't do any carpentry. I used to do the odd little bit of work with my twin brother, which was great fun. But they said, just concentrate on your painting. That's what you want to be known for, get as good as possible. So they were fantastic. And Dad and I, we would paint together 6 days a week. Sometimes we would go out on a Saturday as well, but normally we would go out, say, on a Tuesday. And
well, those are probably great classic photos, family photos, if you have pictures of you and your brothers and your dad out painting. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's actually, it's funny. When I sort of think, I look back at some of the early photos, I thought, I don't actually have many, because you're normally working away, and you normally didn't have that thought of mind to actually take a photo. So we've got a couple, or quite a few, but yeah, sort of most of the photos you take with the iPhone. It's so quick, you got it in your pocket, so you can just get a photo.
Yeah, well, the other observation is that your dad did you a big favor, because he said, don't focus on carpentry right now. Don't focus on anything else but your career. This is something that is well known in the Russian tradition, where they try to get you through your training, get you through school, and then they try and set you up in some kind of a system that gives you support for a couple of years so that you can just focus on painting. And in their case, oftentimes monumental works. But that had to be a tremendous benefit, because you probably saw your skills ramp up considerably in that 2-year period of time.
Oh, absolutely. I kind of went from zero, even though I used to do a little bit of drawing and painting as a kid, but all my oil paintings turned to mud, and I thought, no, that's not for me as a 10, 12-year-old. And my youngest sister was doing art at school, and I thought, oh, you know what? If anyone ever asks, I was doing my carpentry. Oh, any of you kids paint? And I said, well, I think it's going to be my youngest sister, Erica. She's studying art. She's loving it. And so I think she's the one. Never sort of thinking that I was going to be the one. But actually, it was a little bit of a sporting injury. I sort of strained some ligaments in my knee and playing soccer and training. And that's when, Dad sort of grabbed Barry and I, and he had his Tuesday night class, and Barry lasted about 1.5 lessons. The funny thing is, Barry and my father, my twin brother and my father, are splitting images. So you would think he was going to be the artist when you'd look at them as physical people, but Barry's more like my mum's side, the engineers, the electrician. So where I seem to have inherited the art side from my father, but I more look like my mum's side. So I had a really lovely accelerated learning, and actually that kind of brought on an interesting sort of situation that once I met my wife, Stephanie, and we had bought our first little home, I didn't have that safety net there of 25, 30 years of experience to say, oh, watch this and watch that. And so then I had to really sort of sink or swim. And but thankfully, actually, Steph, and that's where I think when I'm at workshops, people sort of say, oh, how come you're always talking about your family? And because I think...
sure you are.
Yeah. But the family, your family, like even now with my sons, and Alex, my older son, who's actually taken a great interest because he's been doing the YouTube channel for about 10 years now, and he's got a great eye, but my wife's got a sensational eye. She'll say, oh, just watch this little area here. And it's good to have that positive feedback. And my mother-in-law, she's sensational. Boy, she's so blunt. She'll say, I like that, love that, hate that, don't like that, which you actually need. But she's fantastic. She's probably one of my biggest fans as well. So, and you do need a lot of that.
You need that. You need that perspective and the support where somebody from your, either an artist friend or somebody from your family who you can count on, that can actually, know it well enough to know that it's not right. So you have had, you had training by your father.
Yep.
Tell me about your inspirations. Who were your inspirations?
Okay. As a 21-year-old, a good family friend, Terry Gawthorne, he was actually an art student with my father. He was 5 years older, so he was kind of the senior member. But Dad and Terry, they knew each other for pretty close on 60 years. Terry kind of stopped painting but started collecting. So he kind of became my sort of mentor. And early on he said, you know what you're doing is very good, but it's just like your father. One of the worst things you can do is paint like your father, mother, grandfather, auntie, uncle. You want to find your own way. And I said to him, well, how do I do that? And he says, well, we used to do a lot of gallery hopping. They used to have a saying, pub hopping, where you go from pub to pub drinking.
Yeah.
But I've never really been a drinker. But so we would go from gallery to gallery. And he said, pick me up next Thursday. We'll go into the State Gallery. We call them galleries, not museums, but it's the same sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, here a gallery, typically you can buy something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, where this was more but it's sort of the State Gallery of Queensland, which has a museum attached to it, but that's the aeroplanes and dinosaurs. So he took me through all the eras, the sort of the realist, the abstract, and this was just more how the gallery was laid out. And then we finished with the Impressionist, and just walking around. And I stood in front of probably my favourite artist, probably of all time, Arthur Streeton. And absolutely no joke, the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I got like that, just that fireworks of delight, that all the pleasure centres were just going off. And I thought, you know what? I think that's a damn good sign that Impressionism, this approach, is the way to go for me. And so then I sort of set about, and I went to with a workshop with Maxwell Wilkes in Melbourne, and Les Graham, an artist from Sydney, and a couple of other artists as well from Sydney. And a local artist who had studied, because our big school is called the Heidelberg School. That's our Impressionism school. It's in a little suburb just out of Melbourne called Heidelberg. That's where they started painting in the early to mid 1880s, after Tom Roberts brought the movement from France, who was English-born but Australian-raised, and came through Paris, was a friend of Ramon Casas in Spain, and so he knew a lot of the top artists, brought the latest teachings, and then those early artists fashioned it into our Australian light and probably our slight approach of painting and painting outdoors. And but also Harold Herbert, who was a later artist in the more the 1920s. Yeah, Harold Herbert, his ability to just put shape and get your eye and to really sort of engage the viewer really taught me a lot about how to, with limited, simplified shapes, how to really engage the viewer. And because I do love the saying, if you can hold the viewer for 3 seconds, you'll have them for a lifetime. So that's what I've always tried to do. Yeah. So but then with my father being the artist, he had such a great art book collection. He says, "Oh, have a look at this guy," and looked at it. "Oh, Richard Schmid, who's this?" Yeah. And then as I opened the book, I thought, "Oh my God!" And his work really just blew me away. Even though subject matter and light, I guess, and approach is quite different, but I think there lies, for me, the great inspiration is that he just had such a marvelous technical ability. And
did you ever get a chance to meet Richard?
I did, thankfully, in 2019, just before COVID hit. Actually, it was kind of fortuitous. It poured down rain the night before, absolutely bucketed, and I thought, "Oh, don't tell me I've got this close." I was teaching in Vermont. Nancy and Richard were living at the house in New Hampshire, and I thought, "Oh, don't tell me all the roads are now going to be flooded." And because Richard had just finished the still life book, so he was pretty exhausted. He spent almost every day for a month working on the book, finalising that, and so no, he was fantastic. And I caught up with Nancy last year, and we're going to aim to catch up. She would love to paint my portrait. She's doing quite a few projects, and with Richard's work and her own work, she's a brilliant artist in her own right.
Oh, she certainly is, and unfortunately, she's been kind of low key focusing on Richard in his final years and helping him get these projects done. And we have not seen enough of her work, so I'm anxious for her to be back and to really start getting into it again. She's such a sweetheart and really great inspiration on her own.
Yeah, absolutely. They've really taken me under their wing, and she contacts me and says, "Hi, you're coming in September?" And I say, "Yeah." So I'll drive over from Vermont, and we had a lovely lunch and all afternoon, and the time went so fast. And we were sitting there, and Richard's paintings are on the walls, and I'm thinking, boy, it's so distracting and so delightful. And but a few of the other artists, I think Trevor Chamberlain from England.
Oh, I love Trevor.
And David Curtis. Actually, Trevor's the same age as my father. I love I think the light that Trevor gets in his work was an instant charm, but also his ability to simplify. And because actually my father's cousin, Ken Whisson, who just passed away about this time last year, actually at the age of 94, actually same age as your father, I believe. He was one of Australia's top abstract artists, and he sold $240,000 worth of work in 2010 at one of his exhibitions. One of his paintings sold for nearly $90,000 when he was alive. And he was a great colorist, and that sort of seems to be one of the great sort of overriding themes from our family is with color, and Trevor really got that beautifully. And the other artists that I've always admired, because I think a lot of people sort of forget the concentration ability, the technical ability. An artist friend said to me, "It's a bit like you grabbing a Steinway piano, grabbing someone and say, 'Come and play it.' with no training. That's the same level that painting requires. To do good work or your best work, you need to be that finely tuned, that well prepared for your day's painting, for that moment.
And
So that's why.
don't you think though? I mean, this is a common problem in the painting world, I believe, and that is that people assume wrongly that
Mhm.
they should be able to stand at a canvas and do a brilliant painting and be masterful from their first attempt, but they would never think that sitting in front of a piano.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah, it's so,
and
so
and
true. Yeah.
for whatever reason, I don't know if this is true in Australia, but here in America, it's kind of like, well, I don't have any talent. No, it's because you haven't learned yet. Just learn the
Exactly.
process, learn the notes. Mary had a little lamb, and go from there.
So, so, so true. Actually, I'm probably the classic case of, because I ran at state titles and district titles and played soccer at state titles and was sort of vying for a state position. I always thought that's where my greatest gifts laid, and make the most of it. But upon sort of straining and hurting my knee, and quite quickly I thought, oh geez, I rather enjoy this. But it's funny, 37 years nearly later, I still love the paint mixing process, and everything's still such a joy to me. And I actually did 3 paintings yesterday, and I was kind of on fire, and sort of working to build up a bit of a collection for my galleries and stuff. And so, no, the hard work, and that's where I think one of Australia's great watercolour and oil painters, Hans Hyson, he was told, "Oh boy, Hans, you're so." He was a German-born, similar to Richard, that German, lovely, disciplined, sort of that Russian Baltic sort of strong on discipline. He said later in his career, he said, "Oh, Hans, you've got such great talent. You're so fantastic. Your work's amazing. You must be happy." And he said, "Whoa. No, I never believed I had any talent or very little talent. I believe it's more that the talent of hard work,
Right.
that German hard work ethic." And he was supremely talented, but that talent, as you said, it grew, and you never know what lies within us. Actually, um, I guess my early good start may have fizzled out and turned into just another sort of run of the mill sort of work, but I was determined to make a statement, and sort of do the best work that I was physically possible at
I th-
doing. So,
I think that there's a lot to be said for growing up in a family of artists. It can be an advantage or a disadvantage, I suppose. But I think that I always equate the idea of I grew up. My dad was an entrepreneur, so for me, it's never been frightening to start businesses because that's what he did all the time, and I didn't see the hard part. And
right, right, right.
I know it now, believe me. But I think
Yeah,
the same thing is true. That you're getting some advantage and some courage that you might not otherwise get. But I also think on the disadvantage side is there's always a little bit of competitiveness.
yeah.
Can I be good enough? Can I live up to that? And that
Oh,
that can be hard. And
absolutely. Yeah,
but I want to tell everybody that's listening to this, I think to mark those words, um, I think it's just really, really critically important is if you're thinking that talent is what you need, just ignore those voices in your head and just apply yourself and get out there and learn it. Because if you don't, you're going to miss a lot of opportunity because your head told you you couldn't do something, told you that you required talent.
yep, so true. Actually, I've seen quite a few students come along that you can see that they're young, they're doing great work, but it actually has, for the level they've got to, has come fairly easily. So they haven't developed the hard work ethic, that discipline. That's why I always back someone with the love for it, for the process, that lovely work ethic, um, that definitely is required. And I think that just seems to be the way my brain's wired. I love to tinker. I think I've got that little bit of scientific sort of interest that I love what with this colour, what will go with that one? But then I guess I was born or have that a nature that I love to express. That's why I always feel that I'm quite a passionate painter. I'm quite an emotional painter. That's why I love to listen to music, and actually Roy Orbison's has always been one of my great favourites, and I seem to have an ear for the operatic sound and that drama. And I think I've always joked that my career has been a Roy Orbison inspired career, because his voice, and I've listened to his songs since my mother first bought them on record when I was 3 or 4 years old, and always loved it, still listen to it. I was listening to his music yesterday as I was working away, and I think that's one of the other sides, is find things that inspire you slightly away. For me, it's definitely music, which I can combine. I also do love a little bit of gardening, and I always had my sport and that sort of stuff, but some sort of appreciation of another area. It may be business. You may admire some of the great business people of all time, whether it's Henry Ford or George Westinghouse, and some of the modern guys. I probably shouldn't mention too many of them. Time will tell how they'll all wash up, but admire brilliance. I think admire greatness, and try and see how they got there. And I think that's what I've always done. I've with soccer, I've loved Pelé, and sadly he passed away sort of last year, and loved Streeton and Schmid and those sort of artists in the art field. But yeah, definitely have some. I think has proved very helpful to me to have those things that, oh, you know what, painting didn't kind of work today, but you know what, I'll listen to a bit of music, and because I think really an artist is a person that wants to bring joy, wants to bring something exciting to the world. So I think we have to stay in that zone, that frame of mind, and because I think the word art is a kind of tricky one to really sort of put a finger on, but I think it's more of a state of being, and more of a because I paint my best when I'm really sort of in that mindset, and things are just flowing, and for me that actually takes, the more work I do, the closer I get to that moment, that sort of area of when I'm technically at my best, and I'm not ultimately trying to compete with Streeton and Trevor and all the great artists of today, and Sargent and Zorn. I'm ultimately just trying to get the best out of myself, and to be honest, I'm really happy with just getting the best out of myself and exploring those avenues. But definitely make sure you're set up well, and have a good easel, good plein air easel. Here's actually, I was in Colorado here with an artist friend, George Callison, and unfortunately I just recovered from a really bad stomach bug, but having a great little easel that's in Crystal Cove. Oh, sorry. So we're really sort of needing to be set up well. I've had students come along with the lid of an ice cream container, a stand-up easel, but the palette on the ground, and painting is well and truly difficult enough to not make it even harder. Yeah, we don't want to handicap ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You know, you want to try to give yourself as many advantages as you possibly can, and then on top of that, the one thing I find with people as well is they carry too much stuff, and you know, I do this event every year in the spring and every year in the fall, a retreat, and I'm not being critical, but you know, you see these people carrying wheel trolleys with, with their entire studio with them. And that stuff just drags them down. And,
Mm.
I have a backpack and that's it. If it doesn't fit in my backpack, it doesn't go.
Yep.
And, so you can be set up in 3 minutes and painting in 5. And I think that, otherwise you get discouraged because of all the stuff that holds you back.
Yeah, so true. Actually, that's one thing that I love, Eric, the movement that you have created and creating.
Oh, no. I didn't create it.
Oh, yeah.
I've been here to help it, but I didn't create it.
Sorry, more the rejuvenation and the bringing it to, because it hasn't ever gone away in Australia, but not as many artists do paint outside. And but the fact that you are a painter as well, that's what I do really love. So you really get it. You get what's involved. You get that lovely adrenaline rush, the understanding of being able to see things in person and try to translate that. And but I have to say, you have done a lot for art and especially the plein air movement, which as an Australian coming from a very proud plein air painting history. And so I'm really, really impressed with the efforts that you have done. So
well, that's very kind. It's all the good Lord. It has nothing to do with me. So let me ask you this. I would love to just kind of touch base on a few techniques or principles, foundational things that people listening, and we have people at all levels. We have people that are brand new, just exploring plein air painting, as well as people who have been doing it their whole lives. But what are some things that stand out to you as important things that you can talk about? It's different, when you can't show them, but you show them when you're. Colley has a beautiful mentorship program with Tucson Art Academy. Everybody should check that out and see how he paints, and he can critique you and so on. But there are things you can talk about that maybe would help people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. One of the things when I do go into a painting, because there's so many marks that need to be required to execute the painting, a lot of times we're thinking, oh, is this the right one? Is this correct? Is it wrong? Is it bad? Is it good? And so I like to think to myself that each brush mark, every brush mark can either help me or hurt me. So as an oil painter, I will be working with a certain amount of caution where I'm working very thin. I do the classic work thin, then go fat and with thick paint. But we have to really be aware that every time I'm putting a mark down, that can help the painting or it will be taking me further away. So for me, that's my thought process. Is this one helping? Is it hurting? How am I going with the brush mark, the value, doing all of that cross-sectional sort of stuff? Because most people kind of probably neglect and forget that most paintings are really just a massive mid-tone, and then we're just placing in a little bit of dark and a little bit of light, normally right in our primary focal point. So we tend to get up close for too long. That's why I always like to think also that I'm painting locally, but I need to be looking globally to be able to see what's happening, because what looks good up close doesn't always look good at a distance, and we've got to try and marry those two entities together so that it reads well up close and reads well at that distance as well. So I am putting a huge emphasis on the mark that I'm making, but also then we've got observation skills when we're out and about. I remember one of my early teachers, we were painting away. It was in a class situation, and he goes, "Oh, did anyone see that figure walking with the red shirt?" And I didn't see any figure with a red shirt. We were in France, in Saint Remy, and where Van Gogh was convalescing in his later years, and beautiful place to paint, but not many people around. It was more sheep than people. And that's when it dawned on me. I think I was about 30, and it dawned on me that art is observation. It's observation on life. It's observation on objects, on light. It's our ability and I think it's an ability to focus on what's most important and then value add. The danger can be if you want to put everything in right at the beginning. So it's that observation for that idea, that concept, how we're going to portray it. So that was a really great lesson. So when you're out, take that time to soak what's in. That's why when I'm in Maine, it's one of the areas I probably do most of my plein air teaching. And so it's every day outdoors, and it's a new subject, new this, new angle, new light. It can be an overcast day, sunny day. And you do definitely need time, but you have to sort of try and find that little bit of calm and that little bit of peace so that you can shut out the rest of the world, get into that zone of shapes, values. I find that hugely beneficial. And I've always had the advice to try different subjects as well. It's good to get good at say desert scene, or say painting boats or mountains or rivers, whatever is your absolutely favourite thing to paint, but then try and diversify. So when you're trying something really new, it's like you're born again. It's like you're reinventing your approach. Yeah. It's really quite exciting, and I think that's where the longer term growth can and does come in, when you're doing an interior or something that's very different that you've never ever sort of tried before or ever sort of ever done. So yeah.
So let me ask you a question, because you mentioned something that's a perfect setup. You mentioned the guy walking through the picture with the red shirt that you didn't see, and you're developing observation skills. When you first start a painting, I'm assuming, and I may be assuming incorrectly, that you're locking things in, either in your head or in a sketchbook or something. You've said, okay, this is what my painting is going to look like. But then the guy with the red shirt walks in, and the sun is slamming that red shirt, and it's the perfect shape in the perfect spot. Will you, A, ignore it, B, try to paint it in, C, try to do a quick snapshot or sketch?
Yep. Actually, that is a great question. It's that, do you try and hit the moving target, or do you stay locked on to your target? And I'm probably more of the initial, I would say, no, you know what, this is my subject, this is what I'm going to do, change nothing. But I think I've learned over time that you should still be flexible enough to say, you know what, this figure or this boat that's just motored into the scene, the sailboat or something, that is a stronger idea than my initial idea. So stay flexible enough to bring it in. And actually, I have a joke with the students. If I'm doing a landscape, I'll know I'm getting into trouble if I'm looking for a spot to put a chicken in. Because that normally means, you know what, this ain't going too good. I'm going to throw a chicken in to try and save it. No, so hopefully no chickens each day. So no, that is a great one. Actually, but I think probably on a finer point, Eric, is but I do try and stay with the light effect. I don't mind, bringing in a figure or a boat or a chicken ultimately, but you don't want to be changing the light effect. That's why I try and get in those big shapes, the ones that are going to move the fastest, the ones that I know I probably won't get a second run at, and I need to get this accurate. I need to make sure that this is in place. They're the things I try not to change at all, because I do love to have the finished painting locked in before I start. But yeah, with that freedom.
What do you mean locked in before you start?
I'll have that finished painting in my mind before I even start.
I see.
Yeah.
So you're trying to envision what it's going to look like before you even put paint on canvas?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Actually, almost that much now that when I'm painting, I'm before I actually start. Sorry, a little bit like the golf swing. You'll see the pro do that practice swing, and in their mind, they're believing that this is the next shot is going to be the shot that they need to play. So
Yeah.
I'm actually almost air drawing the shapes in on the canvas. So I'm even going to that point where I shall have the finished painting fully in my mind, but then also having that visualization technique to actually be putting just drawing where my main focal point is, where that strong line needs to go, where that focal point is, where's my secondary, tertiary. It sort of helps. It's almost like a dress rehearsal for the painting. Whether it's a boat or a figure, I'll lock that in very early on. But
Are you doing preliminary sketches?
I used to all the time for about the first 10 or 12 years. Actually, a lot of times I wouldn't paint or do the painting until I've done the drawing, till I've sort of got that script in my mind. But I think
You
with
kind of
time,
graduated.
yeah, and I still highly recommend, because actually I always say to the students that what launched my career was my drawing practice. What I believe kept my career going is my still life little exercises that I do. I set a little timer just on my phone, 45 minutes, and the still life isn't to finish the painting necessarily. It's more to see how far I can get in that 45 minutes. So it's testing my thought process. And I've easily done 500-600 of those in the last 10 to 12 years. I'll normally do one a week, just on a little 6x8, 10x8. But it's that development of the spatial awareness. So I've used the drawing skill to see the light, the shadow, and how to judge light and dark. And then I'm using the still life, and they have taught me so much, and they give you great confidence as well. I think it's that classic story of quality over quantity, where they are just fine-tuning the way to paint, because I think the still life has almost everything technically in it that we need for all of our painting. And that's as a 22-year-old trying to break away from my father's style. It was actually, I can't remember the exact night, but I know it was in October '88. I thought, you know what, I've got to try something different. And I remembered seeing in one of the Australian art magazines a still life, and I thought, okay, I'll set my own little one up. 6 o'clock at night, I'd been out painting and drawing through the day, and I thought, oh, you know what, 6x8, I'll be finished in 2 hours. It's only a small painting. I didn't finish till 2 o'clock in the morning. But the beauty was that was the moment, even though it was only 2 years, but all of the education that I had been given, I suddenly understood. It was like I had the key, and then that still life opened the door then to my room full of ideas. I then knew how the process of painting needs to work, should work, can work. So that has been and was a real vehicle for improvement. And so I say to all the students online, physical students, anyone who do these little exercises, especially for me, it's a classic one to do when I'm doing a really difficult painting that day. It might be sort of boats or buildings or bridges. And I'll think to myself, you know, I really need to be focused and on my game today. And it could be just three mushrooms, strawberries, any little thing. I kind of almost painted us out of house and home. But they are such great training. I guess it's a little, getting back to the piano, it's a little bit like the scales.
Yeah.
When we're learning to play the piano. It's, I believe a lot of people who are great piano players hate doing scales, but I still love doing the still life. They're such this little exercise. Actually, that much so that I barely have exhibited any of the still life that I've done for probably nearly 15 years, because I see this as my little moment to play, my little area of joy, my little bit of fun, that nothing's expected from it or from me or out of it other than just to explore and to follow that vein.
I think it's a great discipline, a great idea. And, we all need to stay in practice. I don't know about you, but if I don't paint even for 3 days, I lose a little of it. And having something like it you can do makes a big difference. So let me ask you this as a final question.
Sure.
Any final bullet point words of advice for people who are trying to figure out, how do I get better? How do I get to the next level? I'm already great. How do I get greater?
Okay. That's a sensational question. Not a lot of people will think in terms of the board surface, the actual finish, the actual brush mark, what story that tells. Because for me, that is really some of the true art. So I like to think of myself as the world's thinnest sculptor. So that thin layer of paint, I'm actually sculpting the paint. I'm pushing and moving it around. And that's actually leading back into the still life. That's teaching us brush confidence. It's not a lot of mileage, but it's high quality, totally focused. So I think that leads me into that sculpting of the paint. I'll find sometimes, say in landscapes, it'll be a lot of horizontal shapes. So I'll do vertical brush marks for my sky just to break it up so I'm thinking in terms of that paint surface, because for me, use of color and contrast is fantastic. But if we were all playing the violin, the paintbrush would be the bow. So, and I'm always trying to eke out a different sound, a different note, or that half note, or that mid-tone, that little flick, or that little gesture that I'd never thought of. So try and think in terms, am I repeating my brush mark? Is the direction the same? So I hope, I love it when people will say, oh, you know what, didn't mind the subject, but boy, I love your brushwork. To me, that's probably what gives me the greatest joy, because that's that tactile bit that our physical hand has to create. And that's why I think art will last digital age. And the digital age is really an enhancement. It's a different, just a different medium. I don't think it's because of that physicality with the paint, the wet paint, and moving it round and really sort of pushing that paint round. So, because I love to make each painting as visually exciting as possible. And it could be a dull, dreary, almost rainy, wet day, but we still can make them exciting and interesting for the viewers to look at. So paint with passion, paint like this next painting you're doing is going to be your best painting. This one's going to be your masterpiece. Be that focused, be that committed, because really I believe that's what it takes out of me. And I think to get our best work is to paint with that commitment to our work.
Man, you know how to end it. That's beautiful.
Thanks, Eric. It's been a great pleasure.
Colley, thank you for being on the Plein Air Podcast. And this is a formal invitation to get you to the Plein Air Convention. We'll get you on stage. We'll hold a big stage spot for you at some point. So you just let me know when you're ready to come, and we're going to have you there. And
sure.
Thank you for the inspiration today.
A real pleasure, absolute pleasure, and it's just been marvelous. So thanks for listening, if you are listening and watching. So, and thank you to
Well, let's
Eric.
hope somebody's listening, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah,
No,
that's right.
no, I'm sure there's plenty. So
All right.
it's been
Well,
fantastic. Thanks,
thank
Eric.
you. Thank you, Colley. All right. All right. Well, that was a fabulous interview. I could have gone on for just listening to him forever, and maybe we'll do him again sometime. Let's get right to the Art Marketing Minute.
This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
You can send your questions by email to eric@artmarketing.com, or you can send a video question, artmarketing.com/questions. I wish somebody would do that. Nobody's done it yet. Maybe it's not working. All right. My producer, Amandine, is going to give us our first question.
The first question is from Rantes Hopper from Georgia. I explore many galleries online and see they accept submissions virtually. How seriously do you believe those are taken? And as an emerging artist, is it professional to apply to multiple? I know the best way to get in is being invited, so is applying virtually a good option worth devoting time to? 2 different known galleries from overseas have reached out to feature my artwork, but require that I ship it. Is that the industry standard? And do you think the exposure is worth the exponential logistics? How would I verify that this is a legitimate gallery and not a scam?
All right. Well, that was a great question, John Tez. I've got some opinions on this. They're probably wrong. But first off, when galleries are saying they accept submissions online, I question that. Now, I think that there's a reason they might do it. And one of the reasons they might do it is because they're trying to keep you from calling them, emailing them, or showing up at the door. Because most of the gallery owners I know absolutely hate that. Because, if they had 100 artists show up a year and it took 10 minutes each or 20 minutes each, they'd never get anything else done. I have a gallery owner who told me that he gets 150 to 200 emails a month, and he doesn't even open them and look at them. If he can tell what it is, he gets that many or more packages unsolicited. They have to open them because they don't know what's in the packages, and then they're just throwing them away. If they're a good gallery, they have plenty of artists, and every good gallery is always looking for another. And maybe the idea of having submissions is good, but most of it's probably just to kind of make you not call or email. I will tell you that there are a lot of galleries out there that operate differently. They have a different model. A lot of galleries most of the galleries operate on a consignment model where they pick artists, invite them in, and they keep a certain percentage of the work in exchange for selling it. For instance, a standard for a lot of galleries is they keep 50% of the markup price, which is legitimate because they're doing all the heavy lifting, the working, the marketing, the lighting, the salespeople, the phone calls, everything that goes with it. They're earning their keep usually, not always, but there are galleries out there that will look for artists that they can prey upon. And prey upon they do. We have one particular gallery, No Names, who every time an artist appears in our magazine, in a story, in an ad, anything, they pick up the phone and they say, "We want you in a special gallery show in our gallery." And the artist gets all excited. And then next thing you know, they're saying, "Well, it's only this much money to be able to do that." And some of them do it, and some of them have given us feedback that it hasn't been terribly productive. Usually if somebody's going to do a show of your work, they're going to do a show of your work because you're already fairly established. You have a brand. Branding has a lot to do with everything. And, it's like nobody really wants a brand new startup artist. I know you don't want to hear that because it's easier to sell somebody who's established. Now, once in a while, they'll take a chance and they, legitimate galleries do that too. but there's got to be some good indicators of success, I believe, for that to happen. So I think, there's a lot of different things. Now, you asked a question about shipping overseas. First off, how do you know it's a legitimate gallery? I got a call or an email from somebody one time. This was not about my artwork, but they said, yeah, we want you to be an influencer on Instagram. You've got all these followers and we're going to pay you for doing some ads. And I kept saying no to everybody. I get 10 of those a month. And for some reason, this guy got my attention. He got me on the phone. He did a pitch. He showed me a website. It was very, very in-depth. It was very credible. And I ended up signing with him, so to speak, turning over control of my account right then and there so they could do the first thing. And they took it over and took it away from me. Luckily, because I spend $250,000 a year or more in Facebook at that time, I was able to get to Facebook and get their attention and get my account back real quickly. But, there are galleries out there. There are people out there contact you all the time that are going to say, hey, it's my wife's anniversary and I want to buy something nice. I saw your art. And then, they'll legitimately pretend to be buying it. You ship it out, but, the check doesn't clear, et cetera. And there are galleries out there who would do the same thing. I want to put you in my gallery. They might have a fake website, and then you ship them a painting. Well, my question is, do you need it hanging in the gallery? You're going to sell it online? Are you going to feature it? I would legitimately look into a gallery. How do you look into a gallery? First off, Google search it, ask around, look for reviews, look for the artists that are in the gallery and find out if any of those artists happen to be willing to talk to you and tell you if it's legit. Did they get paid? Are they selling work, et cetera? So there's a lot of things like that you need to be watching out for. You can submit artwork to anybody, and I don't want to discourage everything. I just think it's best to get invited because then you're not begging, and then you're in a strong position, but also because the gallery really truly wants you, they're going to work hard to sell you. If you're pushing yourself on somebody, they may or may not push you on somebody else to try and get you to sell. So there's a lot of little nuances to it all. I'm sure there's exceptions to every every situation. So anyway, that's kind of the gallery thing. Next question.
The next question is from Lydia from Burke, Virginia. The questions that most frequently comes up, especially with new artists, is how do you decide how to price your art?
Lydia, it's the biggest question everybody asks. It's the hardest thing to answer. I don't know. I mean, I have some feel for it. I've done it. I have coached people. Some of it has succeeded. Some of it is not. Pricing is all over the map. First off, pricing is a mental issue. What you have in your head as your value is your beginning point. And some of you have an inflated value in your head that's unrealistic, and some of you have a value in your head that's too low. So you got to be thinking about that. Everybody has to start somewhere. Usually you start modestly. If it sells, you sell some more and you start building a collector base and you grow it. That's what galleries are really good at. A good gallery will answer the question for you because they're going to say, here's what I think I can get for this. Now, I had a gallery who I believed, how can I say this without getting into trouble? I believe they were underpricing my work and I wanted to be more expensive and they would not agree to it. I was able to prove to them that I could get that amount of money and sell the painting at a higher price, and that convinced them. But ultimately, they got to believe it if they're going to sell it. So that has a lot to do with it. But pricing, if you got a good gallery, trust the gallery. If you're selling direct, then, there's a lot of different things. First off, research comparable artworks. Now, the problem with that, of course, is what's comparable? Is an 8x10 painting by Richard Schmid comparable? No. Why? Because it's by Richard Schmid. Right? So before pricing your work, research similar works in your genre, your style, see what people are getting for it, check the prices, some subject matters sell better than others. I know that seems crazy, but it's true. Similar things, look for things that have sold. Find artists who are equivalent to you, be realistic, and see what they're selling for. And then study, do they have a big brand or not? Are they promoting themselves heavily? And because brand makes all the difference in pricing. Why is a Bentley a whole lot more money than a BMW, right? Well, it's a perception issue mostly. You're going to say it's quality, and there is some difference, but the reality is, back when I studied this, it's been a few years, but back when I studied it, the difference to build BMW versus a Bentley on the same chassis was $18,000, $20,000 difference, but the price differentiation was $100,000 or $200,000 more. So, it's about perception, a perception of a lot of things, elegance and so on. So consider your experience, your reputation, your brand. That has to be factored into your pricing. If you're well-known, that's one thing. If you're emerging, that's another. It's more appropriate to start with a lower price. More experienced artists are more likely to get bigger prices. But I got to tell you, I know experienced artists who are brilliant painters who have not kept their brand alive and can't get the prices they used to get. And they don't understand that. One guy called me, said, Eric, why is my painting not selling anymore? I said, well, are you doing the things that made you successful? He said, yeah, I'm doing them all. I said, have you done any shows in the last 5 years? No, I haven't done those. They're a hassle. I said, have you advertised in the last 5 years? He said, no, everybody knows who I am. I said, really? Well, 10% of the people, there's attrition every year. 10% of the people who know you don't know you in a year. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, nobody knows you. 5 years from now, half of the people that knew you don't know you anymore. And you wonder why your work's not selling, because you're not advertising. You're not promoting yourself. You're resting on your past, your laurels. You've also got to factor in things like the production cost, the cost of the canvas, the materials, the frame, the time. Calculate how much money that went into each piece. And, I know an artist who gets a very large price for his money. And when I asked how he gets it, he said, well, I factored in, I could do this many paintings a year, and this is how much money I need. I divided it equally. I could do this many paintings. And so that's how he set his price. It works for some people, but he also had a big brand. And so he's getting, $100,000, $200,000 for pieces. Also, you got to factor in the price per inch. There's ways you can figure that out. But you've got to have realistic prices. And prices are all very emotional. Every decision and purchases are emotional. And sometimes a low price equates to low quality. And I've told this story on here many times about a woman who came to an art show. She said, how much is the painting? The artist said $4,000. She said, I'll take it. She writes him a check for $40,000. He says, no, ma'am, that's $4,000, not $40,000. And she ripped up the check, said it must not be any good. So price does have an impact on perception. You increase your prices over time. If you study pricing, there's some great books on pricing. If you study how companies launch products, some people launch products at a high price, and if it doesn't sell, they back off until it does sell, and that becomes their price. Others start it low, and if it sells too easily, they move it up faster and up and up and up. So there's a lot of different things. It's experimentation, it's practice. You've got to communicate value when pricing your work. You've got to communicate the value, the uniqueness of the piece, the time that went into it, the value of your brand, etc. And I know painters who will charge more for one 9x12 painting than another 9x12 painting, because this one took them 2 hours or 4 hours, and this one took them 60 hours. So, it just kind of depends. And of course, you have the opportunity in some cases to negotiate with buyers. And negotiation is a really great fluid tool, because if they want to buy something from you, but truly the price is too high, I start by saying, hey, that's the price. I'm sorry. And if sometimes they'll say, okay, and sometimes they'll walk away. And, you might be able, if you're willing, you can say, okay, well, what would you be willing to pay? And then you try to find a middle ground, something that works for everybody. Don't forget that pricing is emotional. Now, the other thing I want to just tell you, this is not about pricing, but it's about average sale price. And that is McDonald's, you drive through the drive-through. What do they always say? Do you want fries with that? Right? And why do they say that? Because they know if they can get everybody who drives through to buy fries or to upsell to a different package, they're going to make more money on it. So when you sell a painting, it's the best time to get another painting sold because somebody's into you, they're into your painting. And you can easily say, if it's true to you, you can say, hey, you bought this painting. I have a rule that because anybody buys a painting from me, they'll buy the second and third painting at a 20% discount. Here are 2. Would you be interested in these? Or pick one of these 5. And oftentimes you'll have an upsell, and that's an opportunity. Anyway, that is the Art Marketing Minute.
This has been the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads. You can learn more at artmarketing.com.
All right. Well, I'm hoping to have you guys come to the Plein Air Convention 23. Just go to pleinairconvention.com. Make sure you get your subscription at pleinairmagazine.com. And I hope you'll join me for Fall Color Week. Fall Color Week is the retreat this coming fall. Adirondacks is sold out. Fall Color Week is not yet. If you've not seen my blog where I talk about life and other things, it's called Sunday Coffee. Just go to coffeewitheric.com. Sign up for free. You'll get it. And I'm on the air daily on Facebook and YouTube. The show is called Art School Live. Just go to YouTube and subscribe. Look up Art School Live, hit subscribe, and hit notification. That will notify you when it comes out. All right. And also, please give me a follow at Eric Rhoads on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. I'm Eric Rhoads, publisher and founder of Plein Air Magazine. Excited about the Plein Air Convention. Certainly excited that we had Colley on today. It was fabulous. Thank you to Colley, and thank you for your time today, for listening to the Plein Air Podcast. Remember, it's a big world out there. Go paint it. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
This has been the Plein Air Podcast with Plein Air Magazine's Eric Rhoads. You can help spread the word about plein air painting by sharing this podcast with your friends. And you can leave a review or subscribe on iTunes so it comes to you every week. And you can even reach Eric by email, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. Be sure to pick up our free ebook, 240 plein air painting tips by some of America's top painters. It's free at pleinairtips.com. Tune in next week for more great interviews. Thanks for listening.